IAS Academy.
Hello all, welcome to IAS Academy and welcome to the program Editorial Daily, which enriches your perspective and enhancing your answers, in which we are going to deal with editorial analysis on daily basis. So let's get started with our today's session. So let's get started with our today's editorial analysis. In that, we will go see the first article. The article is the challenge of India's digital sovereignty. The challenges of India's digital sovereignty. What it means and what is this article is talking about? Let's see. So in the 21st century, in 21st century, basically this digital infrastructure has become important as the physical infrastructure, where this commerce, this governance, this communication, defense, and the national security, which is increasingly depending on the digital platforms. Yes, so in recent incidents which we see, which is involving the CCTV security breaches and restrictions on this Nayara Energy's access to the digital services, which have highlighted the India's vulnerability to the foreign controlled technological systems. So the central argument of this article is mainly about India must strengthen its digital sovereignty. India must strengthen its digital sovereignty to ensure the technological security and to also ensure the strategic autonomy and the economic competitiveness. Okay, so let's see what is the digital sovereignty basically means. Digital sovereignty is nothing but it is a nation's ability. It is a nation's ability to control its digital infrastructures. Nation's ability to control its digital infrastructures. Okay, digital infrastructures. So infrastructures like what? Data, technology, platforms, and critical technology assets without the dependence on the foreign entities. Okay, this is what the digital sovereignty mean. What it includes? It includes the control over the data and what you say, the indigenous software and hardware developments, and the secure communication systems. You can talk about the domestic cloud infrastructure and the technological self-reliance in strategic sectors. This is what we can include in the digital sovereignty. And we can have this question: why is this digital sovereignty important to us? Because in recent warning signs which we have seen, the CCTV network vulnerability which we have seen, it indicates the reports that India's CCTV networks were comprised by the hostile entities. Okay, so this issue is linked to the usage of the foreign software platforms, though we can say our and the another incident like Nayara Energy incident which has taken up, it says that Nayara Energy reported to the lost access to critical digital services like corporate emails of those and collaboration tools, and those, I mean, the cloud storage data also has been sanction related discussions have taken outside the India. So though even the data is within the stored in India, the foreign companies can still exercise the control over the access because they own the technological platforms. So as they own the technological platforms, though the data is within us, even they can access this data. This is what the risks we have seen in recent days. Okay, so let us see what is this I mean, what is this complete the article is talking about, and what are the challenges which India is facing in this complete picture of this article. Okay, now let's get started. See, the challenge of India's digital sovereignty. The challenges of India's digital sovereignty. Let's say the context of this article. It said that recent breaches and abrupt services which denials by the foreign technology corporations, such as the compromise of Indian CCTV networks and the denial of cloud services to Nayara Energy, have exposed severe vulnerabilities in India's digital infrastructure. So, the issue highlighted the urgent need for technological and digital sovereignty in a fragmented world. Okay, so when you link this topic to your syllabus of your GS paper 3, which can include to the science and technology, indigenous of technology, developing new technology, and for internal security, basis of cyber security, to this topics you can link this article. And in GS paper 2, you can link this article to the topics of international relations, which the effect of policies and politics of developed and developing countries on India's interests. Okay, now moving on, let's see the introduction of this topic. What is it basically? See, yes, when you see the introduction of the topic, it starts like digital infrastructure is the track on which modern commerce, governance, and national security run. Yet, India's critical systems that authentication, productivity, suits, and control cloud platforms remain heavily dependent on foreign owned platforms. So, even if data is stored in India, foreign governments can compel their firms to share data or enforce the sanction shifting effective control away from India. Okay, this is what the introduction you can write in your mains answer if it is asked. Now, let's see the risk of foreign control. The rest of foreign control, the first one is the vulnerability of external sovereigns. Like, see, the critical operations can be halted by the foreign directives. Basically, in July 2025, the Microsoft denied the Nayara Energy access to its corporate data to enforce what? EU sanctions like linked to Rosneft. Okay. So the Microsoft has denied the access of Nayara Energy's the complete corporate data of the Nayara Energy to enforce what? To enforce the EU sanctions which are linked to the Rosneft. Okay, this is the one vulnerability of the foreign control. Next is the software defined warfare. In sense, modern fighter aircrafts, missiles, and radarly or amended intelligence. Okay, if source code remains under foreign control, if the source code is basically remained under foreign control, the systems may be degraded, limited, or redirected during the conflict. This is what it can happen. Next is the historical precedent. The like in 1999, during the Kargil conflict, India was denied precise GPS support. It is the India has denied by the GPS support, which showing how reliance on external technology can operationally fatal. Okay, this is what the historical present is. Okay, president is now. Coming to the digital sovereignty snapshot, when you see the Nayara Energy, where the cloud access has been denied in July 2025, and the Kargil lesson, we can see the GPS denial in 1999, and the core concern would come from the control over data, code, and access, because we are completely keeping our data in their hands. So we don't know even our data is secured or not, because they can access, even though it is already said, even though the data is within the India, but the platforms are those platforms which we are using, they can access the data, whatever they can do. Like, coming to the strategic risk, like external sanctions can disrupt the operations. This is also one of the things. Now, coming to the global push for the sovereign infrastructure, you can say, when you see in globally, coming to the France, moving government departments away from tools like Microsoft Teams and Zoom to sovereign video conferencing platforms by 2027. This is what the France is doing. And coming into the European Union and Turkey countries, it exploring the domestic alternatives to the critical US software such as the Word and Excel to reduce dependence on the foreign IT infrastructure. So, from this editorial insight, what you can say is digital sovereignty is no longer just a technology issue. It is a question of strategic autonomy, economic control, and the national security. Okay. Yes. When coming to the India's unique strategic vulnerabilities, the first one is the power transition theory, where as India rises and seeks the strategic autonomy, it established hegemonies may try to constrain its choices. And the second thing is strategic dependency risk, like excessive dependence on foreign tech can enable contaminant coercion and or co-optation. Okay, next is the co-imperative. Core imperative is that India must build economic strength on technology that is secure, trusted, and independent of external control. Okay, so digital sovereignty is essential for long-term strategic autonomy. Okay, so don't forget these terms, few terms which we are telling. And why does this digital sovereignty is matters means it protects the control over the data, code, and access. Okay, and it reduces the sanctions and supply chain vulnerability. It strengthens the national security and defense readiness, and it enhances the strategic autonomy and economic competitiveness. Okay, this is why the digital well-being, digital sovereignty is matters. Okay, now when we see the multi-pronged strategy for digital sovereignty is, first is the platforms, indigenization of platforms, like build on the success of UPI and RuPay, migration of some central ministries email systems to Zoho is a positive step. This is one of the positive step. Next is de-risking defense production, like over reliance on the public sector entities has fallen short. So, and follow the US style model of R&D support plus assured procurement, and the competitive framework for AMCA shows a move in the direction. Okay, the next is strategy and mutual partnership. In this regard, we can say joint ventures can create the mutual dependence. For example, BrahMos missile program with Russia. This is the one of the example for strategic and mutual partnership. Next, the fourth one is leveraging trust tech. Leveraging trust tech, like US India Tech Corporation. US India Tech Cooperation has supported Micron's Semiconductors ATMP facility in Gujarat. This is one step. And participate in the strategic global alliances such as Pax Silica for AI and supply chain resiliences. Okay, this is what you can do. Next is the closing the R&D gap. How India's gross expenditure on R&D averaged to 0.74% of the GDP within the 2000 to 2020. Next, the global average is basically how much? 2.07 percentage. Okay, but in India it is averaged of 0.74 percentage, and globally it is 2.07 percentage, which is bridging this deficit is very crucial for India. Okay, now when you see the R&D gap, now if you see in India it is 0.74 percentage of GDP, whereas the global average is 2.07 percentage of GDP. So the gap should be covered very fast, because it is an urgent need for the greater investment. Okay, now coming to the way forward which you can take from this article, and way forward which you can give to this article is to build secure domestic alternatives in cloud, software, and digital public interest. It is one of the way forward which we can talk. And then to increase the R&D spending and support private innovation ecosystems, and then use the trusted international partnerships without surrendering the control. Though we use the international partnerships, we should be very careful that our data should be within us and it shouldn't be misused with another entities. Okay, and we can give another way forward, like align the technology policy with national security, industrial policy, and strategic autonomy. Okay, so this is the way forward which we can take. Coming to the conclusion, what you can write in your examination is, for a country of India's scale and ambition, technological and digital sovereignty is not a luxury, but a foundational requirement. So India's success in indigenizing its tech stack, closing the R&D gap, and forging trust partnership with shape its competitiveness and strategic autonomy. This is what the conclusion you can write for this article. And coming to the key takeaway from this article, what you can write is, in the digital age, sovereignty is not only about the territory, it is also about the control over data, code, platforms, and the technological choices. Okay, when coming to the UPSC perspective, how you can take this concept, take this topic is, so this topic links to the SMT and cyber security, defense preparedness, and industrial policy, strategic autonomy, and international relationships. So use it to connect the technology dependence with the national power. Okay, this is what you can give for the UPSC perspective from this article. Okay, yes. Let's move on to the next article. So, yes, a second article for today is, what would it take to stop South Korea's population decline? What would it take to stop South Korea's population decline? Why it is in news and what is the context of it? Let us see. Basically, the South Korea is facing one of the world's most severe demographic crisis. Okay, so according to the United Nations projections, its population currently is around 52 million. Is around completely to 52 million, the population of South Korea. So it could decline to nearly 22 million by the uh, 2000, 2100, which is set by the UN United Nations projections, losing more than half of its population. So the South Korean demographic crisis can happen like this. This is stated by the United Nations projections. So this article examines whether this changes in fertility rates, life expectancy, or the migration could prevent this decline or not. This article is being concerned about and talking about. Okay, now when you see the current situation, which is in South Korea, the population peak is around 52 million, as I said, and it is expected to steadily decline throughout the 21st century. By 2100, population may fall to nearly 50. By 2100, the population may fall by nearly 58%. So half of the population of South Korea can be declined. Okay, so there are many drivers of population changes, like the fertility rate, which is the birth, and the life expectancy, the death, and the migration, which is the movement of the people. So the UN projections are based on the assumptions about these three factors. See, you can see it here, which is mentioned in the article as well. Just a second, I'll show you this. Yeah, you can see this graphs here, like, see, the fertility rate, the life expectancy, and the migration rate, which in all these factors, on these three factors, based on the assumptions the UN projections have given. Okay, so basically, what is this fertility rate? The fertility rate is the average number of children a woman is expected to have during her lifetime. This is what the fertility rate is. So in the South Korea, the fertility crisis is more like around, when you see in the past, in 1960, I'm writing it on the article itself. In 1960, basically what happened, nearly 6 children per woman has to be there. How many? 6 children per woman has to be there. Around 2026, what happened? Around only 0.75 children per woman. It's not even complete one child. At least 0.75 children per woman is being there. So one of the lowest fertility rates in India, is in South Korea. Okay, so the replacement level of fertility has to be happened to maintain a stable population. So fertility rate should increase about, it has to at least increase to about 2.1 children per woman has to increase. Okay, now, what it would be needed to increase it to stop the population decline? Like if South Korea would need a drastic rise in the fertility would need to return to its around 2.1 to 2.3 children per women. Okay, so there are many challenges for the low fertilities in women, like high housing costs in South Korea. Basically, the cost of living is very much in South Korea, and the expensive educations, the delayed marriages among the youth, and work life imbalance and the career pressure on the women also are the major reasons for the low fertility in South Korea. Okay, so a modest increase may slow down the decline, but not a sustainable baby boom could stabilize the population. This is what you can take a note of fertility in the South Korea. Okay, coming to the life expectancy in the current scenario, South Korea already enjoy one of the world's highest life expectancy. It is the world's one of the highest life expectancy is South Korea. Okay, so it couldn't longer live. Theoretically, if people live much longer, population can be delayed, right? If the life expectancy is more, late marriages and all, so obviously the population can be delayed. Okay, so the article suggests that life expectancy would need to rise dramatically, so possibly approaching 130 years by 2050 to keep the population stable. This is what the article is telling. Okay, so we will clearly see the article completely, and we will talk about this article. Okay, let's move on to the context and which papers can be related to this article. Okay. Yes, let's see what it would take to stop South Korea population decline. So we'll see the expand analysis of this. Let's see the context first. South Korea is facing a existential demographic crisis, as I said. So UN projections indicate that its population could more than half over the next 6 decades. Okay, so recent estimates which suggested the fertility rate may fall to 0.72 by 2026. So depending on already deepening and already severe population decline. Okay, so in which syllabus of our UPSC we can link this topic is for GS paper 1, we can link this article to the topics like population and associated issues, global demographic trends, aging populations, urbanization and societal pressures. And in this is of GS paper 1. In GS paper 2, you can link to the international relations, policies of developed and developing countries, global migration trends also. This is the article you can link to the GS paper 2 topic. In GS paper 3, you can link this to the Indian economy, demographic dividend versus the demographic disaster, labor force participation. Then paper 3, you can link this article to this topics. Okay, now moving forward, coming to the introduction of this topic, when you see South Korea is starting an irreversible decline in its demographic. By 2100, the country may have a aging population of only 22 million, down to about 42% of its estimated 52 million population in 2026. So, reversing this decline would require improbable changes in fertility, life expectancy, and the migration. So the crisis is also noted in modern economic structures that discourage family expansion. Okay, so what are the fertility challenges which have been taking up in this South Korea is, see, the drastic historical drop, like the fertility collapsed from about 6 children per woman in 1960 to below 1.0 for today. Okay, 1 for today. Next, the target for the stability, like to maintain the population, fertility, and rise back to the replacement level of 2.1 children per woman by 2050. This would be the target for the stability of the population. Next is, coming to the survey evidence, in June 2026, it is stated that 51% of the SME workers and 50.7% of small business owners reported no intention of having children. They have no intention of having children due to the positions which I've said, the high education fees and cost of living in the South Korea, and the work-life imbalance and all. And what is the root cause of this? The root cause is exorbitant housing, children care and education costs, demanding and inflexible work schedules, shift work and weekend operations that make family life difficult, as we discussed previously. The core problem comes as the economic insecurity and work culture actively discourages the family formation. This is the core problem of not having the fertility expectancy and decreasing the children. Okay, now coming to the key demographics of this is population from 2026 to 2026 to 2100, from 52 million the population may decrease to 22 million. This is one of the main the main cause. Next is share remaining by 2100 is the share which will be remain by 2100 is only 42 percentage, and the possible fertility rate by 2025 itself is 0.72, and the replacement level target should reach up to 2.1. These are the key demographic snapshots you can easily write in the examination. Okay, coming to the life expectancy hurdle in the South Koreans, the target is to offset decline through longevity alone. Life expectancy would need to reach about 130 years by 2050. By 2050, the life expectancy would reach to about 130 years. Okay, the current reality is South Korean life expectancy is around 83 years. Okay, so what is the unrealistic thing is, in the best performing countries, which is gaining one extra year of life expectancy takes around 4 years. So moving from 83 to 130 years would therefore be a takeaway about 188 years, not the 25 years. Okay, basically if an more what you called best performing country takes 4 years to increase the life expectancy to 1 year. If the South Korea has to gain the life expectancy to 130 years, then how many years it would take? It obviously takes 188 years, not the 25 years, but they have only 25 years with them to increase their life expectancy. Okay, next is the structural limitation. What is the structural limitations of the life expectancy hurdle is, even dramatic longevity gains cannot permanently offset very low fertility. Okay, so once the fertility falls and aging accelerates, demographic decline becomes the mathematically very hard to reverse. Okay, so moving on, we'll see the appeal of migration. Now, we have seen the fertility and the life expectancy causes, right? We will see the appeal of migration. How the current reality in South Korea is, South Korea has one of the lowest net migration rates. Lowest net migration rates, around like 1.3 people per thousand residents each year. Okay, so the target is to offset population decline through immigrations alone. Net migration would need to rise to about 9 immigrants per thousand people annually. Basically, now it is 1.3 people per thousand people, but to increase this, the life expectancy, and only by the migration processes, the net migration would need to rise to about 9 immigrants per thousand people annually. This is one of the challenge. Next is scale of change, like this implies roughly a 7-fold increase over current levels. Okay, so coming to the political and social barrier, achieving this would require a major overhaul of immigration policy and a shift within a relatively homogeneous society. So migration can help, but relying on it alone requires a politically sensitive paradigm shift. Okay, it is not that we can only increase the population by fertility. It is not only by concentrating on migrations. It is not only by increasing the life expectancy of the people in South Korea, but it is very important that all three together come upon and develop the population and increase their to decrease their demographic crisis is one of the main issue they have to come over. Okay, next, coming to the demographic feasibility test, fertility which is needed is 2.1 by 2050, and reality it is below 1 today. Okay, so life expectancy it needed 130 years by 2050, but reality is about today they have 83 years of life expectancy, but if they need 130 years by 2050, think of it. Coming to the migration, they need 9 per thousand annually, but the reality basically now it is 1.3 per thousand. Okay, so no single demographic level is easy enough to reverse the decline quickly. Okay, so coming to the broader implications for global demographics is the development trap. First is the development trap, like rapid industrialization, high living costs, and hyper competitive work environment, which tend to suppress the fertility. Next is the global relevance. Global relevance is like South Korea crisis reflects a wider challenge for advanced economies facing aging population and low birth rates. Next is the policy lesson. The next is policy lesson, where demography is snapped not only by culture but also by labor markets, housing systems, and social support structures. And the long term concern would be like once ultra low fertility becomes entrenched, population decline becomes very difficult to reverse. Okay, so why is this population reverse has to be mattered? Why is this much more important? Is population decline shrinks the workforce and raise the dependency burden, obviously. And aging societies face pressure on pensions, care systems, and long-term growth. And the last is demographic imbalance can weaken your economic dynamics and strategic capacity of that particular country. Okay. So by this, what India can learn, what lesson that India can learn is India currently benefits from a demographic dividend, but this advantage is not permanent. Obviously, it is it is falling fertility in major urban centers is an early warning sign, because in India, in major urban areas, the fertility rates are being decreased. So this is one of the early warning sign for us. So India should promote family friendly corporate cultures and flexible work policies. And coming to the next point, the affordable urban housing and robust children care infrastructure are essential preventive investments which has to be taken. Okay, the key is to act before economic pressures permanently alter the family planning behavior. Okay, this is what the India has to see, because we are already starting up with the key signs of this demographic crisis. Okay, now see, conclusion. What we can write the conclusion of this topic is South Korea's demographic crisis shows that one population decline is set in motion. Reversing it becomes mathematically and socially daunting. Okay, so while policymakers can expand this economic support, child care and flexible work arrangements, pushing fertility back to the 2.1 replacement levels will remain a monumental challenge that no modern developed nation has yet achieved on such a scale. Okay, this is the conclusion what you can write for this article. Coming to the key takeaway which you can take up to this article is population collapse is not just a statistical issue. See here, population collapse is not just a statistical issue, it is a structural crisis and rooted in economics. So work culture and social change. So South Korea offers an important warning for countries that wish to preserve long-term demographic stability. So you, in coming to the UPSC perspective for this article, is use this topic to connect to the population trend, aging, migration, labor markets, demographic dividend, urbanization, and social policy. For India, the core lesson is preventive demographic planning. Okay. And yes, these are the two articles for today, which we have seen the digital sovereignty and the demographic crisis in South Korea. I hope everyone liked this lecture. Take a clear note of it, because editorials is one of the major key role which plays in your examination, in writing even your mains answer writing and in the interview also. So don't miss this editorial analysis daily. To get this, to see this editorial analysis daily, do follow, like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and do follow our Instagram ID and the Telegram ID. All the links are provided in the description below. And to get a clear note of it, this editorial analysis of today, do visit our website and download it from there. And however, the link is provided in the description below. Okay. And yes, we have done with the editorial analysis of today, and we have one more announcement. And yes, the GR 2026 scholarship test. And we are conducting GR 2026 scholarship test in a phase 2, because the last week, that is June 21st, we have done our phase 1, which has successfully completed of GR 2026 scholarship test. This is of the free coaching for the selected top 40 female candidates who writes the exam and gets selected in the top 40 female candidates. They get free coaching along with mentorship for your UPSC. Okay, so don't miss this opportunity, girls. Grab this opportunity and be in the top 40 candidates and avail the coaching for free. We will announce the dates very soon, so stay tuned to our YouTube channel of GRIAS Academy. Thank you.